Okay, can you hear me, Dale?
Yeah, I got you, Goldfinger. How are you?
Okay, good. Can you see my screen, or can you just hear me?
Not, let's see. Not yet.
Okay, so let's just leave it that way. I'll share my screen later on. I'll just
Share
talk.
your screen. Share your
You want me
screen
to share
now.
my screen? Okay.
Yeah, this isn't your show.
I'm trying to figure out.
All right, so there'll be a Dropbox there, and it'll say share screen, and you'll be able to share the screen you want to show.
Okay.
Having issues with that?
Can you see it now?
Got it. Yeah, we have Bitcoin here.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, you had that fake out head and shoulders on your chart too.
Yeah.
But you know what? I wanted to ask you before we got started, since you're the first CEO technician I've ever met in my career, it's been a long career. I'm wondering if people at your company have to get your permission to draw channel lines because you're the CEO technician.
Well, okay, so I don't really have a company. CEO.ca is a website, and it's based on the mining sector. It's based in Canada,
right?
And so that was my moniker there for a few years, and then I changed it to the Goldfinger, which you like, and I think a lot of people like that. I think it's a fun name, and I do a lot of work on gold and the gold mining sector, so it fits.
So how did you get to become a Goldfinger? What was the beginning of your journey into the trading analysis industry of these kind of high spec markets? Who introduced you to it?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's quite a winding road, but I mean, definitely my father had a huge hand in it. My father was involved in the stock market basically my whole life and way prior to me being born. In fact, he invented the first stock, quote, box, for lack of a better term. Back in the 60s, stockbrokers could put this box on their desk and they could put in the stock symbol and get the quote from the NYSE, even though it was 20.
Was it Quotron, or Quotron bought them out?
It was bought out by Quotron, I believe.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah.
All you have to do is watch the movie Wall Street, everybody, and you'll see what people were using back then.
Yeah, no, but so his thing was actually, it was on brokers' desks in 1965. So it was way prior to Wall Street.
Yeah.
And they sold out to Reuters, actually. Sorry, it was Reuters that bought them out in 1970.
Wow.
So my father's a big stock market guy. He was an investor his whole life. So I naturally had the bug from a young age. But when I went to college, I didn't really, I studied economics, wasn't really, when I was in college, it was during the dot-com boom. And it kind of soured everybody when it crashed in 2000 and 2001. So I wasn't really thinking I was going to get involved in markets as a big part of my life when I graduated. But a few years after I graduated from college, my friend was working for a brokerage firm. And he called me up and said, get your Series 7, come down here, and you'll make $1 million. And I said, oh, well, that sounds like a good offer. And he said, we're going to hire you. You just passed your Series 7 and you'll get hired. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know it, much. I thought I knew stuff because of.
How many dials did you make a day? And how did you like cold calling?
It was a different kind of boiler room. It wasn't a cold calling room, but it was more of a churn volume room where we're going to trade as much as we can, and if we can just make a penny or two, the house will make a lot of money, and the brokers, the traders, the brokers, quote unquote,
converting clients' equity into commission dollars.
So no, I mean, wasn't so we
Churning.
didn't have clients. We had a
Oh, I see.
bankroll,
Okay.
and the house just wanted to churn as much volume to get the rebates on the volume.
Wow. Okay.
So I didn't make anything. I traded there for like 6 months and didn't make anything, and was kind of lost as to what I was going to do because this wasn't making $1 million. It wasn't even close. But I did learn a bit about the industry. I learned about how certain things work, and I went off on my own. And I was fortunate enough to have some bankroll from my grandmother, and I started to trade on my own. And I learned.
Did you have mentors?
Yeah, I did. I had a few different mentors, and my father was always a mentor. In fact,
Yeah, you're
around the
lucky.
time I went off on my own was 2006, and he was very heavily involved in investing in the mining sector. So he really got very heavy into investing in the gold sector and even like copper and all natural gas and oil. He really got heavily invested in 2003, which is actually perfect timing because that's when the bull market really started to get going. So by 2006, he was really in the thick of it and doing very, very well. So I was following along with him a lot and learning from him, his wins and his losses. And like that's really how I cut my teeth, was basically learning from my father.
All right. Well, you're very fortunate. A lot of people have to depend on the internet and try and weed through and do their due diligence as to what's good and what isn't. So you started here with a Bitcoin chart. Do you trade cryptos?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so it's funny when I saw the thing prior, the Forex, gentlemen. I'm always amazed by the number of lines and indicators on Forex guys' charts. It always blows me away. I can't even understand how they look at all that stuff. I'm a technical guy. I use charts first and foremost, but my charts are very simple. I mean, if you look at the stuff that I post, it's usually maybe a few lines, maybe a Fibonacci, here and there, and the rest of it is just looking at support levels and trends. I mean,
So let me ask you this, because I'm a big proponent of RSI. What message are you getting from the RSI on this washout in Bitcoin today?
Well, I mean, so the Bitcoin chart, and the reason why I pulled this
Well,
up
I'm
is
asking about what message are you getting from RSI, which you look like you use RSI and MACD. What's it telling you about Bitcoin today?
well, we're deeply oversold, but we're in a bear market, and it could bounce a little bit, but this thing is in trouble. I mean, it's made lower highs on the RSI since May, and it's made lower lows. It just made another lower low, and it's in bear territory. So even though it's technically oversold, the trend is pretty powerful to the downside here. So even if we get a bounce, I mean, sure, it could bounce back to 7,000, maybe even back to 7,200, but the trend is down. So we're probably going to make lower lows. And like the other guy was saying, I mean, the problem for a Bitcoin bull here is that if this thing gets under 6,000, it's making a lower low after a bear market, parabolic crash and a bear market rally. I mean, it's everything. And it's not following silver in 2011 to a T, but markets don't copy each other, but they do rhyme, and they're similar in their patterns. And so this is
so you see a correlation between silver and Bitcoin? Because a lot of people were talking about stock indexes, equities, and Bitcoin, but you see a correlation between silver and Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. Very similar. Yeah, I
Huh?
mean, I was trading very heavily in 2011, and I've traded silver futures even. That's how crazy I was. And I actually did very well because that market was gave a lot of opportunities both on the long side and on the short side. But if you recall, going back to let's say March, April, May of 2011, the mood around silver, the sentiment around silver was very similar to Bitcoin at the end of 2017, the last couple months of 2017. I mean, the bulls were shouting from the rooftops, banging their chests that, you know, this is the next big thing. But back in 2011, silver was going to $100, you know, was the bull case, and that the dollar was going to zero, was basically, you know, worthless. And obviously we know now, obviously 7 years of hindsight, that 2011 in the dollar was actually a major low, major bottom in the dollar, and it was a major top in silver. And so similar with Bitcoin, you know, the sentiment was extreme. It was, you know, euphoric, and the price action was parabolic. So in the sense that the price action was parabolic in silver in April 2011, the sentiment was through the roof. Same thing in, you know, at the end of last year in, you know, Bitcoin, parabolic price action and through the roof sentiment.
Okay, let's get in my time machine and push the handle from the past to the present and looking into the future. What are some of your views going forward on gold, which you talk a lot about the miners, and I follow miners too. Miners have way underperformed gold for quite some time now. I was schooled that the miners lead the underlying commodity. What's your take on gold? And even with the recent bout of dollar weakness, gold hasn't done much. It's all been about being long silver and short gold. So going forward, what's your view on gold and silver?
Well, I mean, I think that the metals in general have a long-term pull to the, upside. You know, they have a tailwind, a monetary inflation, expanding population, et cetera, et cetera. I think that they go higher over time. I'm not one of these guys who thinks that, gold is going to 10,000 next month or something. But I think gold is actually a very interesting market right now. And what you're saying about the gold miners is absolutely true. Gold mining sector has sucked for a very long time. I mean, it had a little bit of a rally a couple of years ago for about
very nice.
Yeah, it had a nice move.
A lot of things quadrupled, like MUX from 70 cents to 450 or something like that. I mean, they all doubled at least during that.
If you didn't catch at least a double on your gold or silver stock in 2016, you were in the wrong stock.
Yeah. So how about now? We've retraced, but haven't negated all these gains. Do you like the miners here, or do you think they'll still get cheaper?
I'm long the miners here. I'm not like heavily long, but I am long. I do like them here. I think the sentiment on the sector is pretty negative. I mean, it's not extreme to the downside, but I think a lot of people don't own this sector. A lot of people don't think this sector can maintain a move to the upside for very long. I think.
Do you do it through individual companies, or do you use ETFs like Dust and Nugget and?
Yeah, I use the exchange traded funds a lot, but I also have a portfolio of smaller mining stocks. So that's another thing that I do. I'm not just a short-term trader, though I do a bit of that on a regular basis. I have a long-term investments as well in smaller mining stocks. So this is like, one of my specialties.
Like pink sheets?
Yeah, I mean, but so I buy them in Canada where they actually have a real exchange, listing,
Okay.
future exchange, and you can do that through IB.
That's Vancouver Exchange?
Well, it's called the Venture Exchange. It actually was in Vancouver, but they bought it all out. It's one company now, and it's called the Venture Exchange. But yeah, many years ago there was a building.
You mean the Misadventure Exchange?
Yeah.
Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
The Venture Exchange has a long and storied history of amazing, swindles and frauds and sorts of stuff. but
That's what I'll call it.
It's funny, at the same time, I'm always amazed at how great it is for capital formation, and the fact that, if somebody has a really good idea or what they think is a good idea, they can, list a company in Canada and probably raise a few $1,000,000. And then it's whether or not they can find that gold or copper or whatever it is that they're trying to find in the ground. And, the mining sector is treacherous because the odds of making a, real finding an ore body that is economic is very low. The odds are really against you. But
so I've been taught to bet on the jockey, which is the management or the CEO of the company, because they have a track record. Huh?
That's a great way to go. I mean, there are guys who win on a regular basis, and there are guys that lose on a regular basis.
Yeah, like McEwen's pretty good, right?
Yes, he's a solid name in the industry, although he's had some challenges recently as well. I mean,
who hasn't? I mean, you even talk about in the trading industry, guys like John Paulson having 40% drawdowns, but they did become billionaires in the market. So
this is the thing. These guys know how to structure deals such that if they're putting in a relatively small amount of their own capital, and then they're getting a lot of the potential upside of the deal.
Basically, they're creating their own Federal Reserve because their paper is their currency, and they use it for everything, don't they? They float it for, IR. They float it for equipment. But so, really, they have their own printing press, and there's a lot of dilution. Right?
That's correct. And the guys that you want to bet on are guys who don't do that to an excessive amount, because if you're getting diluted constantly, the odds are really, really against you as a shareholder. So you want
it's fun to get reverse splits, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there are those as well.
All right, so I'd like to switch gears since oil's another one of your bailiwicks. So we had a really outstanding bull run to almost $73, and then we had that 7-8% pullback. Crude's still trying to gather its footing. You have a view on oil from here, and do you think that part of the catalyst? I've interviewed some people that are, that trade a lot of oil issues, that think that there could be some type of problem and possibly conflict with Iran later in the year.
It's interesting. Last week I was looking at oil. And by the way, so when we had that move up above 70, I actually kind of top ticked it on the day that it hit 72.90. I went negative on oil and basically said I think that this is going to be a peak for a while. This is this could be the peak for the rest of the year. I just think that price level above $72 a barrel, and then you have Trump trying to talk it down and the Saudis trying to talk it down. There's a lot of powers that do not want oil above $70 a barrel. So
what would be a good level to start to reaccumulate around your moving average?
I
60
think we
bucks?
could get back to 60. Yeah, I think this could come back to $60, and then you might want to be a buyer of the complex. But looking at a bunch of the charts of the oil services and even like Chevron and stuff, I think that they're in a little bit of trouble here. I think there could be more downside in this sector. It doesn't attract me to want to get long this sector. And then last week I was reading a lot on this space, and there's people who have really good like arguments to be positive on oil that makes sense, and there's a lot of bearish, arguments that make a lot of sense as well. I don't really have a strong opinion on this either way. And it's interesting how the narrative in the market always follows the price action. So when oil went above 70, all of a sudden we had this narrative, this bullish narrative that was coming out. Everybody was explaining why there's too little oil out there, that the shale guys aren't able to pump out as much as we thought. And all of a sudden you got this, narrative on why oil's going to 100. But it had already gone from 43 to over 70 in about a year. So it already had this big move. I mean, that's a massive move in oil. And I always get suspect after a very big move when the narrative and the sentiment then starts to change and be, oh no, it's got to go even higher now. And I think that you see that in a lot of markets where the sentiment is kind of late to the party.
Yeah. So do you have a business model, or do you train people, or people subscribe to your newsletter? Do you just trade your own account to make a living? What's your business model?
Actually, it's very simple. So I trade, I invest. So most of my income is from my own, accounts. I also manage a portfolio for a high net worth investor, which I get compensated for as well. And I also do have a subscription model. I have a very small co.ca with less than 70 people in it, and I charge an annual fee, and we take trades, share charts, talk about the market in there, and I do generate some income from that as well.
And what's your monthly charge to be in your room?
It's $50 a month or $500 a year.
Okay, it's reasonable. I want to thank you for your time and dropping in and getting to know you, Goldfinger. I appreciate your time today. All right, and I wish you, good hunting and a lot of success continue for you and all the people that your words reach, either written or orally. So you're now my trading warrior brother, Goldfinger.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
All right, well, good hunting this week. A lot of landmines, red events, and everything. So appreciate you coming here and sharing your views and your journey with us today. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, my friend. All
right, that's it for Monday, guys. I'll see everyone for Turnaround Tuesday. You could follow Goldfinger at CEO Technician. And most of all, everyone, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. See you for Turnaround Tuesday. I don't expect to be calling anything except maybe a day trade because of all the red events this week. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your attention. And don't forget to call Trent if you're unhappy at all or you want to have more than one account. There's not a law of having more than one FX account. Maybe the best way for you to know what you have is to compare it to another. So give Trent at Forest Park FX a call and get to know him, because you never know when you might want to make a change. And that's a wrap. Adios. Trade safely, and see everyone for Turnaround Tuesday. Thanks again, Robert.